Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. While the epic fall of China's stock market has attracted global attention, another piece of news has also recently aroused strong concern in the Chinese online world. That is, in 2023, as many as 235,000 Chinese people took their own lives because they couldn't afford to repay their debts. This figure, some say, is already equivalent to the Nanjing Massacre that the Chinese Communist Party has been publicizing in high profile all these years. Let's first look at a recent piece of news. On February 7th, news of the sudden death of 34-year-old Cao Xin shocked China's investment community. Cao Xin was also known as Cao Bangxun, and he was the founder of Tianli Shanghai Asset Management Corporation. Public reports said he passed away on January 31st due to personal mental health reasons. But a story widely circulating on social media said he jumped to his death because he had borrowed too much debt for leveraged operations. Yet recent market volatility caused him to go from a 40% net gain to a 50% loss in 2 weeks, and he couldn't accept it and took his own life. A fund management company called Shoushan Trading Room posted an article on the internet on February 7th titled Death of Shoushan, which talked about how, as the most bullish investor in the Chinese A-share market, it ultimately collapsed. And the reason for the fall was actually that they were restricted from selling at a time when the market was falling drastically. Here is a screenshot of the computer when they were restricted from selling. After they placed the sale order, the messages they received were always business eligibility restricted. At the end of the day, the cell in the operating system directly turned to gray color. The button was totally disabled and they just couldn't sell at all. Have you ever heard about this kind of situation? And these are the market rescue measures taken by the CCP amid this stock market downturn. First, restricting large institutions from selling, and finally, outright prohibiting any selling. Although this temporarily prevented the decline of the index, many leveraged institutions were unable to hedge or stop loss. So they lost everything and were completely wiped out. I believe that no government in the world has ever rescued the market in this way. Now let's watch a video.
知道吗？我们国家今年因为负债自杀的人群竟然高达了23.5万，已经远远超过。
Well, this presenter says that 235,000 people in China have taken their lives in 2023 because of debt. In May of last year, Mr. Guo of Changsha brutally ended his parents' life first, then his 24-year-old wife and his 4-year-old child, and then ended his own life simply because he was in debt for more than 1 million yuan. He also said that he made Mrs. Wang of the Fuji restaurant chain unable to withstand the pressure of debt collectors, also ended her life. And in June, a man in Yibin, Sichuan province, jumped to his death on the Yangtze River, also because he owned more than 100,000 yuan in online loans. On the Mid-Autumn Festival, Guan Shanxiang, a 38-year-old private equity magnate known as China's Warren Buffett, also chose to end his life. In response to the topic of 500,000 people in our country died due to debt in 2023. Many users of China's short video platform Douyin, or the Chinese version of TikTok, said that 235,000 was an underestimated number. One user said, maybe more than that. My son passed away in 2021. Another user said there could be more. A third user said there must be more people still queuing up in line. This official report shows that in 2023, nearly 800 million people were in debt in China, with a per capita debt of 140,000 yuan, or nearly $20,000. In addition, data from China's central bank shows that in the first half of 2023, there were more than 8.4 million so-called dishonest judgment debtors in China. Dishonest judgment debtor refers to people who are unable to pay back their debts and are put on a special list as dishonest debtors subject to enforcement. Once a person or a business is on this list, he or she or this business will be subject to all kinds of restrictions, especially on economic activities and transportation, which means that he or she won't even be able to buy a plane ticket. This is called social death in China, which means that you are like a dead person in society. Now, let's watch another video.
曾经身价上亿，现在负债1.5亿的陈东波，创业13年，没想到最后留给我的却是132份的债权协议。
This lady says her name is Chen Dongpo, and she used to be worth hundreds of millions, but now she has become 150 million in debt. And he has been in business for 13 years, but she didn't realize that in the end she would be left with such a huge debt and the problem of being unable to pay her employees. She said that the Guangzhou Mishang clothing company she founded was still a well-known enterprise only 2 years ago, with an annual output value of 1 billion yuan. She was once very successful, but now it has gone bankrupt and she cannot pay her debts. She posted this video to ask her creditors to forgive her and for the time being, and she didn't choose to run away because there are still hundreds of families relying on her business. At the end of the video, she's still hoping that she will be able to start all over again and pay off her debts. She's almost in tears when she says this. A business with a value of 1 billion yuan and employing hundreds of people has now become a dishonest judgment debt. From this business owner's experience, as well as the asset manager mentioned earlier who jumped to his death, we can see that the current economic downturn in China has affected the middle class, as well as some of the previously high net worth individuals. Some people have returned to poverty overnight and even more heavily in debt. The National People's Congress of China has recently published a report that talks about the fact that a third of the small and micro enterprises in China have financial problems. That is, they have already fallen into a debt crisis and are on the verge of closing down. And these enterprises employed 180 million people. In other words, there are 180 million people who may soon face an unemployment crisis. So in 2024, China will have a very difficult time from the middle class to the bottom of society. Some media reported that since 2019, more than 1.1 million people have left China and immigrated to Japan, Vietnam, and Thailand. And the most prominent group of these people is the middle class, such as high-tech tenants, business owners, and professionals. And now, millions of Chinese people are desperately trying to flee overseas. On February 5th, just after the latest round of stock market crashes, searches for walking the route on Chinese social media WeChat reached over 4 million, a jump of more than 23,000% in the search index. Walking the route or 走线 in Chinese refers to illegal entry into the U.S. from the U.S.-Mexico border. The number of Chinese arrested at the southwest U.S. border surged to 37,000 last year, 50 times the number 2 years ago. In this sense, the economic crisis created by the CCP has not only brought disaster to the Chinese people, but will also surely bring more negative impacts to the rest of the world. By the way, today is the last day of the Year of the Rabbit on the Chinese lunar calendar, and tomorrow will be the first day of the Chinese New Year, the Year of the Dragon. Traditionally, Chinese people call the last day of the Chinese lunar calendar 除夕 in Chinese, but the word 除夕 sounds very similar to the word 除夕, which means eliminating Xi, and in eliminating Xi can be easily understood as eliminating Xi Jinping. So this year, Chinese people are not allowed to say 除夕 anymore. Is that ridiculous? Anyway, if you have a family member who is Chinese, I would still like to say 除夕快乐 or happy 除夕 to him or her here. Well, that's all for today. If you like my content, please share my channel and videos and give me a like or leave us a comment to boost my inconvenient truth. Thank you. Have a nice weekend and see you in the Year of Dragon.